of society. I've never seen a pillar right down front like that. So wait a minute, how do I'll have to split this. I'll have to split this. Come here. I'm going to set up a... How's that? Can you... Is that good?
Yeah.
Well, wow. Hello, everybody. So, Toronto. You have no idea my past history of Toronto. No, really. I mean, I went to school. I was born in Montreal. I went to school in Montreal. You could be shot for that in Toronto. And so I went to McGill, and graduated McGill, and I was doing theater in McGill, and radio and all that. And then somebody was doing a summer theater in the park, in the big park in Montreal, and I was in that summer theater. And the guy who was producing it, the summer theater, also was producing professional theater in Ottawa. So he invited me to come not as an actor, but because my degree was business, Bachelor of Commerce, I think we called it up here. And so I went to Ottawa, to the Ottawa Repertory Theatre, the Canadian Repertory Theatre, the CRT. I went to the CRT as an assistant manager, and like my marks in McGill, I failed miserably. I barely made it out of the passing grade in McGill, and I lost tickets and I lost money. They were going to fire me, but they hired me as an actor, and that was the beginning of essentially my career in Ottawa. And so I spent 3 years there, and I've forgotten why, but it must have been because Toronto is the center of the theater and TV and radio in Canada, so I came to Toronto so many years ago. And I lived in, where was the old CBC? Jarvis, right? So I lived just off of Jarvis Street in an apartment building, 5 floors up, and the bed that they had supplied was rope mattress. So I had a mattress on top of some ropes, and I would get out of there as quickly as possible in the morning and get back as late as I could at night. And one day, somehow, for some reason, I altered that routine, and I went back early to my room, and I found rats and mice playing, because they had figured, you won't be here. And, oh my God. And I was, then in those days, Toronto had a blue Sunday. Everything was closed on Sunday. I see some people nodding their heads. So here I was, lonely and alone and so miserable in my rope mattress, and I didn't know anybody. And then every Sunday, everything closed. Movie theaters, restaurants. Nobody was in the downtown area, which is where the CBC was. But there was a hotel, a small hotel, a couple of blocks over, and the name of the hotel and the restaurant at the hotel was the name of the hotel and the restaurant that was in the hotel was named after the street, and so it's a couple of blocks over from Jarvis, and the sign there in that hotel was they had a cafeteria, and it was all you could eat for $2 or something like that. So, and I was going to meals now and then because I couldn't afford it. So all you can eat for $2 would be like 2 days of food. So, and then there was a lot of working guys with their families going there because it was, I don't remember whether it was good or bad food, but it didn't matter because it was only $2. And $2 then was a lot of money, and so $2 and I'd eat. And then, that was like at 6 o'clock in the evening, on Sunday evening. And then at 8 o'clock, the cafeteria closed. And the bar in the lobby opened. And I didn't realize it until I was immersed in it, that the hotel was like a brothel. And the girls working the brothel were like downstairs in the lobby at a table, having a drink or a snack or something like that. So there'd be a round table, 3, 4, 5 girls at a table, lots of tables, lots of girls, and guys would come in, the tricks, and the girls. So I ate all I could, and then I'd sit at a table with some of my friends who just disappeared for half hour or an hour. They go upstairs, come back down, and say, what was I saying? You know, and I made friends with the working girls, and you know, I was like, I needed to talk to somebody. Blue Sunday, so I would talk to them, and here's the story that happened that I've never forgotten. My feeling or the look on this lady's face. So I go to Stratford from here, and I spend 3 years at Stratford, during which I meet a beautiful young lady who'd come to Stratford, and we fell in love, and we got married. Or we were going to get married while I was still going to Stratford. We were going to get married. So I'm now at a movie theater with her parents, my future in-laws, which is going to happen right away. And so we come out of the theater, Gloria and me and her parents, and we're walking towards the car when one of the girls with whom I had befriended in many ways is walking the street. She's working the street. And she looks like she's working the street. And I see her. Now, she was a lovely lady who assuaged my loneliness and my hungers and my desperation. She was there for me at the table, and I don't, you know, whatever her name was, Marcy, whatever. Hey, hi. So I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me, and I'm with my potential in-laws and my bride to be, and I'm looking at her, and I'm thinking, holy cats, what do? Do I announce, hi, walking the streets, great, any tricks? You know, no, I can't do that. And I look at her, and she crosses, like we're outside the theater, so it's lit, darkness there, and she walks across in her short skirts and high heels. She walks across, and I'm thinking, I wonder if she's going to acknowledge me. My God, I don't know. I hope not. And then at the end of the edge of the light, she turns. She looks at me. I look at her. I'm too frightened to, oh, hi, Jane, how are you? And she looks at me, and something like recognition passed between us. She walked on into the darkness, and I never said anything to my prospective in-laws or my prospective bride. I never said that there goes a dear friend who spent 6 months with me, but the look on her face, which was knowledge, I see you, I know what you're thinking, I won't betray you, and how sad I am that I can't say anything, and I'm going. And she left. And to this day, can you imagine how many years ago that was? And I still remember the picture, the lighting, the overhead lighting of the theater, and I think about it with regret. What should I have done? I still wrestle with what would be the moral position that I could have. I probably now, if that were to happen now, if a prostitute I knew very well were to come out, I don't know what I would do. As a young man, I was my early 20s, I guess. middle 20s, and I was so unformed. You know, they talk about as you get older, you get wise. Sorry to let you know, it's not what happens. I still don't know anything. I mean, I don't know anything. I have no idea what wisdom is or what it's meant, what older people are supposed to be able to say as they get older. Yes, no, I'm wise. Here's what you should do. Nobody knows anything. That's the other thing. That's wisdom. Nobody knows anything. So you can't decide, here's what I would do. Not here's what you should do, but here's what I would do would be about the only thing you could say. But the other thing that may be the advent of wisdom is that all the experiences begin to fit into a skein that you're knitting. Like you're knitting the shawl of your life, and you drop a few, whatever you call them, what do you call it when you knit? What? Hey, stitches. That's what you have me in. Right. You drop a few stitches, or you lose track, or it unwinds. You got to start again. But they all begin to fit in a sort of, like you can see the picture as you go towards the end of life. You can see, so that, I wouldn't recognize that lady. She's probably not alive. She died of old age. But what a poignant moment in my life. I've never forgotten that. Who knows what that feeling, which I can call up at any moment, of fear and love and inability to move and frustration, just it's so complex as everything is. It's more than one thing. But that was Toronto. I had also, in the 4 or 5 years that I spent living here in Toronto, I fell in love for the first time with a lady at the CBC. Passionate love. I never felt that. I'm reading a book about Sir Laurence Olivier and Vivian Lee. There's a great novel, a great book on their lives that somebody put me onto, and I'm reading it. And Olivier is talking about never having felt the passion that he felt for Vivian Lee in his entire life. And I too was brought up in a very sheltered life. I lived at home, going to school, going to McGill. I lived at home. I'd go home every night. And so my college existence, I've got a grandchild going to, at 17, going to, getting ready, no, I've got two. One is 17, getting ready to go next year to college. But the other one, 20, is going to college. And I had dinner with her the other night. She's a totally different person from when she decided to go to college in London. She's been away, she's had experiences. She's just a different human being than she was when she was a teenager when I had dinner with her. I hardly knew her. So we were talking in such a different fashion. I wasn't her grandfather, I was afraid of hers, and she was telling me about experiences she had, totally different. I never went through that. My experiences happened in Toronto. I had the love affair, I had the disappointments of not getting a role in the CBC. I had the victory of writing my first television screenplays and selling them. And in fact, I met my wife, Gloria. I cast her in one of the plays. I said, young, I was just 22, 20, no, I must have been 24, 25, living here in Toronto. I had all those mystical, life-changing experience here in Toronto. And I went to Stratford for 3 years, and we did a play by Marlowe that we took to New York from Stratford. We played, what the hell was the name of it? And I had a good part in it, and I did very well, and people noticed me in New York. So in effect, I left Toronto. In the summers, I was going to Stratford and come back to Toronto every winter. Winter in Toronto, I don't need to tell you. And then one day, down in New York, and suddenly I was a New York actor, and essentially, to simplify, I stayed in New York, and I became, I was young, and they needed young actors, but I was a seasoned theater actor, which was very rare, if almost unheard of in the States, where young actors weren't on stage for, I don't know, 7, 8 years that I was. So when it was time to perform on live television, it was essentially a play. You had marks to hit because of cameras, but you were doing a play. In Ottawa, I was doing a play a week. We would rehearse a play at, during the day, play another play at night, and every week, the Monday nights, the set would go out, the new set would come in, and we'd be doing a play a week in Ottawa. In Stratford, we'd open a play and then be rehearsing another play, and 3 weeks later, open that place, and then we'd have 2 plays, which were going, and then 3 plays and 4 plays. By the end of the season, we were doing 4 plays, a different play every night. That kind of seasoning for a young actor just wasn't around anywhere. And so when I went to New York, I was like different, and I was hired everywhere. I was very popular in live television in those days because of my experiences in Toronto, Ottawa, and Stratford. Anyway, that's my early life. And so when I come to Toronto, I look at these giant buildings downtown where it used to be tough to get on, what is it, the 401? It used to be tough to get on, but now it's, you know, we were in telephone contact when I landed on the airplane. We were in telephone contact with some of the people coming in last night, and getting from the airport to the center here, we were in telephone contact with some of the actors who were leaving a hotel a few blocks away and getting here. It took them as long to get a few blocks downtown as it took me to get from the airport to here. I mean, it's just those giant apartment buildings are, and the freeways haven't been enlarged, and the entrance to the freeways haven't been enlarged. The traffic jams here, you know, I mean, you think Los Angeles is bad, but this is terrible. There's a lack of planning. It's just that Canadians do better than that. Let's all rise up and revolt. So does somebody have a question that not you? Yes, you. Is there a microphone? No microphone, right? Oh, there you go. There's that lady in blue right there. Yes, waving. That one. How are you going to reach it? Throw the microphone at her. Come around. Come around. Maybe you don't need the mic.
Okay, have you got nice loud voice? I do.
If you could be a cake, what kind of cake would you be? If you hear me, if you could be a cake, what kind of cake would you be?
If I could be a paint?
Cake. Cake.
Like a baked cake.
C-A-K-E.
C-K-A-E.
C-A.
Not only is my mind going, but my hearing. What?
C-A-K-E.
Cake.
Okay. That is the stupidest question. Well, first of all, it would be multi-layered. It would be chocolate because everybody likes chocolate, and actors want to be liked. It would be round because that's a nice shape. Like you, my dear. William Shatner.
I try to be like you.
What?
I try to be like you, the round shape.
Oh, like you, a round shape?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you're young and beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
So that's your question. What kind of a cake?
Yeah, what kind of cake would you be if you could be a cake?
Multi-layered cake.
I love it.
I'm
That's
glad.
hot. Live long and prosper.
Oh dear. That guy right in front of you, the young lady in the green, right? The gentleman with the black t-shirt right there.
Yeah, I just whacked him a few times.
No, you got to sit down now.
When you went into space, did you think about your performances in space? You had that odd expression on your face at the moment of weightlessness. What was that like?
Nausea. I went into space. Let me see, where should I start this story? Well, you're aware that I pretended to be in space for a few years. I had a, you'll have to sit down, sir, you're blocking. I have an album out there now called Bill. I've got a book coming out in October called Bold to Go. And I hope the book is about, and I say that because I talked endlessly to somebody who shaped the book, and so I'm hoping that what I had to say had this thought, that the universe everything is in vibration. Everything vibrates, including this chair, this supposedly solid handle is vibrating. You can put the sign down out there. You're getting married. Oh, you want me to marry you? I hope you have a prospective fiancé. All right, I pronounce you married. Sit down. So, so this book, it should be about the interconnectedness of everything. The vibrating universe, us vibrating, everything in the universe is connected. In particular, everything on Earth is connected. 5 billion years of evolution, everything is connected. We're all connected with the universe. And if through prayer, through thinking about it, through awareness, if you can be in conjunction with the vibration, the universe will look after you. That sort of mystical thing of which I believe about 85%, and the other 15% I'm thinking, oh, that's bullshit. But I don't know. So that's what the book is about. So I have this album called Bill, which is out there now, which received extraordinary reviews. One word that I remember reading called it breathtaking, the album. And this guy, Robert Chernow, was a friend of mine for many years. I didn't know he was also a poet. So Robert and I wrote the lyrics and the ideas of the songs. We so enjoyed the process that in writing the songs for the album, we wrote many other songs, which I'm going to try and trace all these different ends of the story. So we wrote we wrote about 25 songs, of which we used about 12 for the album Bill. So we had leftover songs. A famous musician by the name of Ben Folds. Ben Folds, anybody?
Yeah.
So Ben Folds and I had done an album a few years ago called Has Been. And it was very successful. And he and I remain friends over the years since. He calls me and says, I'm now the art director, the director of Kennedy Center, which is, I'm trying to think of, the Massey Hall doesn't quite make it. It's a giant center in Washington for culture. And they have a great 33,000 seat opera house. And he said, do you want to sing at the opera house? So I said yes. And I said, I have a lot of songs. He said, you know, it's the week after Earth Day, a couple of months ago. And I said, I've got some songs about Earth. Because when I went up into space and I looked out the window, I was looking behind me and seeing the Earth from whence we came. And I could see something that nobody has ever talked about. I was looking, for some reason I was looking back there. I could see the Earth, and I could see the blue air, the sky, what we think of as the sky. So we're going through the air, hundreds of miles an hour, a couple of thousand miles an hour, and I look back, and I see the wake, like a ship's wake, as the spaceship is disturbing the air. I've never heard anybody talk about the wake. And then I turned in that direction and saw the vastness of space. And I've been fascinated by space. The Webb telescope is like a dream come true. The Hubble was like a friend of mine for a variety of reasons, which I don't have time to go through. So I looked into space, and none of that magic was there. It was just black, palpable death. I saw death there, and I saw life there. So, when I came back down to Earth, I called Robert Sherman, my poet, and I said, the dinner we had, because I was in New York City, where he lives, working, and on a Sunday night we went out to dinner, and we talked about, tomorrow I'm going out to the space thing. We got to write a song about space. And we jotted down some ideas. I called him, one of the first calls I made when I landed, saying, Robert, all our ideas of what space is like, we thought, forget about it. It has nothing to do with what I saw and felt. So we wrote a song called So Fragile, So Blue. There's a beautiful sound, I hope it doesn't disturb you, but there's a beautiful sound of a baby being happy. And I'm delighted to hear it. I hope it doesn't disturb any of you. And the baby's mother should relax. It's like a background to a baby being born and renewal of life. It's wonderful. At least I feel that. So, the experience I had in that spaceship, thinking about the life and the death, I found myself when we landed, and I'm cutting this story a little bit short, I found myself weeping, crying uncontrollably when I landed. I thought, what's the matter with me? Why? What's the matter? What am I crying about? And I had such a profound feeling. And indeed, I put my arms around Jeff Bezos, whose rocket it was. And apparently I said, I don't ever want to forget what I feel. When I went back and sat down a moment, why am I crying? I realized I was in grief for our planet. That the 5 billion years of evolution, where everything is connected, where everything in the African plains, termites build large hives. Maybe they go 6 feet. They're made of clay. They apparently chew clay and masticate and build these very elaborate hives, and it's air conditioned because they have holes in them, and the termites flap their wings, and it cools everything. And there are mounds like everywhere. Elephants come by, and they have scratchy behinds. So they scratch their behinds on these mounds, destroy the mounds, and the mounds fall to the ground. And the elephants are stamping around, so they make a clear circle around where the grass doesn't grow, because it's not. When it rains, the rains collect a little bit in the very shallow pools, and then the years go by, and the more rain comes, the bigger the pool gets, the more animals come, and finally, it's a watering hole. Because elephants and termites got together. How bizarre, and of course there's innumerable examples of how bizarre the connectivity of everything here. Trees talk to each other, not just by pheromones, which we've known, but we've discovered that trees are sending electrochemical signals along the mycelium, where the fruit of which is mushroom. There's a lattice work under the ground, 6 inches, 8 inches under the ground, where fungi operate. Trees are using them to send electrochemical signals. Our brain with dendrites are lengths of material upon which we send electrochemical signals. Our DNA is more alike to a tree than unlike. We are so connected. And that's what I was in mourning for. That's what that trip into space gave me. When I went to Kennedy Center to perform with a 70-piece orchestra in front of 3,000 people, the arc between my first album, and I've been asked to get off now, the arc between my first album, which was not well received, disaster, to them not letting me off the stage, 3,000 people rising and cheering at the concert, which is now going to be an album and a television show. The arc of what I was able to do in 60-odd years between albums, the connectivity of it all is what I am seeing. So that's a vacillating overview of something that I think is wonderfully mystical, that applies to all of us. Our interconnection of human beings and all of nature. And so the last sentence for me is, we're destroying it. And Canada is in the forefront of trying to preserve it. We've got to do more and do it more quickly. Otherwise, it's a tsunami. Thunderous applause. It's a tsunami of trouble. Thank you very much, everyone.